Good morning and welcome to another edition of COVID Calls. We have a really interesting packed program today. We'll start off with the Finance Minister himself, Scicluna, and we also have representatives from the MFSA and the FIAU, the Financial Intelligence Analysis Unit. So one of the things we'll be discussing today is Malta's fight against financial crime and how that's been affected by COVID. Just as a little background, it's important to keep in mind that Malta is currently trying to sort of improve its systems and efficiency and operations in terms of its battle against financial crime, so that it doesn't get blacklisted or grey listed in terms of the Moneyval report. So we'll be asking about that, and we'll be asking also about how COVID is changing or affecting the work of people in this sector. But we're just going to start off with Professor Scicluna. Can you see me and hear me? I think you're on mute, so just give me 1 second. Are you with us? Yes, Minister?
No, I said good morning to everybody. So we can start asking.
Okay. So first of all, I hope you're adapting well to this sort of remote life. I know you're in the vulnerable category, so probably you're not getting to spend too much time in cabinet or although doing things remotely. But give us a sense of how badly hit Malta's finances are in terms of what's happening to our economy, right? So we're always concerned about businesses and how much money they're losing and how much people are being made unemployed, etc. But obviously the government is stepping in on a number of fronts, and it's your job to kind of make sure that the finances still add up. Malta has had quite a good track record in terms of keeping its finances in order. How much is that going to be skewed by the current reality?
Oh, definitely, this was an unprecedented shock to all the countries. We've never experienced anything like it, in the sense of a whole sector completely shuts down. Not ifs or buts or maybe or a little bit, nothing. It's shut down. I mean, a hotel is closed down, restaurants, most of the shops closed down. I mean, this is something not even in the war, actually, it happened because, with all the difficulties and bombs and so on, at least some activity did. In this case, it's can't, because people are being told to stay indoors.
So how does that affect money we raise? Things from taxes?
We measure our economic activity with the gross domestic product. There's nothing to measure. There's no value added being happening in those sectors which have shut down. Now, the countries with the biggest negative effect have been those who were in total lockdown, because that's almost the whole economy. In our case, it was a partial lockdown. Now, we have certain advantages and disadvantages. We have an important sector like tourism, that's a big disadvantage in this situation, which is completely shut down. But then all the rest, because our economy is quite diversified, make up for it, because there are services which in this with the new technology, somehow limping and trying and so on, managed to survive. And at the same time, we have also the construction sector, no matter how we hate it or its noise and so on, but it's still going on, a little bit subdued because of disruption in the labor force, but it's still going on. So you've got construction, you've got iGaming, which is an indoor activity, which, except for the sports betting, which has actually shut down, but the rest, there is a bigger demand. I mean, the Netflix of this world are booming with activity. And then there are the financial services and others, which, as I said, they have not completely shut down. I'm not saying that they don't have issues like quarantine and absenteeism because of the schools and so on. However, all in all, our economy is such that because it hasn't gone into a complete lockdown, it is surviving, and the hit is not as bad. That is on the economy side. On the financial side is how much oxygen and space, fiscal space you have. Some countries, they have no choice. If they are over 100 if their debt is over 100%, they are desperate, and that's why they are desperate at the EU level. Take Spain and Italy; it's not a joke. They'll falter if they don't get oxygen from the EU in terms of grants or whatever. They don't want more debt because it will make it worse. But in our situation, because we brought down the debt to 43%, we've got a number of percentage points to go. We can vote over 150 million for health without saying, "Ouch!" We can afford them.
And how long, for how long can we afford them? So we're not yet sure if this is going to be done by summer or by the end of summer, by Christmas. Do you have any projections or predictions? And how long can we survive without ending up in serious debt and deficit, etc.?
Our and especially for finance or the government's apprehension was the uncertainty, the points you just made. Would it be over by the summer? Would it come again in November? Could it repeat itself? We will have a double dip. Would we have enough strength for the second time, and so on and so forth? Because this could go for 2 years, no matter what we're saying about vaccine and remedies and so on. So we don't know. However, and to our luck and well management by the health authorities, they have so far, fingers crossed, managed to contain the risks of a meltdown of an enormous peak, whereby we would turn patients away from hospital. Those ugly scenes we've seen in other countries have not, luckily, so to speak, visited our island. And we just hope, and that's why now the question of opening up is quite a serious one. And that we've done it so far. We don't want to spoil it, but at the same time, we want to get to normality bit by bit. So we have not been hit health-wise because we managed it. I mean, Greece as well. There are some countries who somehow so far have done well. But there's no guarantee that this will not be lost in a matter of days. Nothing, nothing can guarantee us against that.
The Nationalist yesterday proposed that it would give 50. That the government should give €50 per citizen to help boost the recovery for people to spend them at restaurants and bars, etc. What do you make of that proposal?
At this point in time, there's nowhere to consume. I mean, they can consume online and so on. I mean,
once they open,
the question of recovery first is, I would say, the biggest sector which is keeping the economy, at least as far as Malta, but many other countries, is schooling, especially childcare. Childcare is the biggest, it's not the biggest, but the biggest impact, is the sector with the biggest impact on the whole economy and the labor force. Nobody would have thought it, just the childcare, and that's why it was so effective when we introduced the free service, why it had such a big impact on the economy. Now we're seeing it the other way around for many countries, not just Malta, that as soon as you don't provide childcare and you keep children in the home, bang, all the female labor force, and also male labor force, couples and so on, you get them into a big problem where they can't attend work, they have to rely on telework, if they can do it, and if not, you have a big problem. So that is, if you want relief, you want to encourage, or how would I say, I mean, this is a very touchy subject. I mean, some countries have reacted strongly against it. And they say, our children are not guinea pigs and so on. So it has to be an optional. When we come to that stage, the government hasn't announced it yet. I mean, it will announce in the next week, as the minister, the deputy prime minister said, other measures. But this would come at a later stage. But it's important. From an economic point of view, it's very important. However, how are you going to ensure that you keep social distancing between children, especially kids, I mean, under 3-year-old, and also you have to keep it optional. I mean, you can't force parents to tell them, look, it's open, you have to go and so on.
So just to understand,
more than giving out money. At the moment, the, families, those who are working but kept in the home, are frustrated that they can't spend the money they normally spend. They are saving more. That doesn't apply for those who are self-employed or who lost jobs or who've got big trouble with business and so on. I'm just referring that in general, from a macro point of view, the issue is not we need more money for consumers, we need more money for businesses because these are who are suffering more.
And just to understand, so when it comes to children, so when it comes to the measures that are going to have the biggest impact, it's when we're allowed to open schools again or provide childcare again that will allow people to get back to work and things like that. That will be the biggest change that you would be sort of lobbying for from your end in terms of finances.
Because there are various studies, especially in the UK and other countries, which have shown that the biggest impact on the labour force has been childcare, and then perhaps some primary schooling, but not the secondary or university.
I think a lot of people are worried about the state of the economy and the oncoming recession and the economic downturn, etc. From your perspective, do you think we're worrying too much, or do you think we're still in denial about how bad this is really going to be? So if you were to give your assessment, on how, from Malta's case more than the rest of the world, would you say that this is, we really need to brace ourselves for some very dark times, or do you think that this might be overblown as a problem?
No, rather dark or bright or whatever. They are different. They are going to be different, and there are many business because it's a mixed bag as far as the private sector is concerned. Some of them are still not in denial, but begging for more, and hopefully that's enough. But others are really serious about recovery. They are discussing with us and with government because it's going to be a change. I mean, the tourist sector as we know it, for the next 2 years, I would say, it will be different. It has to be different. And those who adapt and provide for that, then fine, they'll be successful. Others who are either in denial or obstinate, or they are not flexible enough, they're going to suffer, yes. So the same for airlines. I mean, look at Emirates. Immediately, they've invented a way how to provide certain security for its passengers by experimenting with a 10 minutes swab test before boarding. They've tried a flight like that. Then a question of each flight, rather than being cleaned from the paper things, litter, they will disinfect it, and so on and so forth. So we have to live with that for the next couple of years, I would say.
The main topic of today, if you can lower the volume on your computer, it would be great, because I think I'm hearing myself. But the main topic of today is the Moneyval report and our fight to kind of address things over there. You've said how important the gaming industry is to us. We know that the gaming industry is one that does depend a bit on our reputation and our ability to combat financial crime credibly. As we know, Malta has a end of summer deadline to brush things up and avoid a blacklisting or a grey listing. We've heard as well that the US government, there was a report this week that Malta is asking the US government for help. We're not yet sure about whether that is for lobbying to kind of not get Malta in this position, or to help us reform our system. What is the case when it comes to
let me stop. First of all, crime is crime, and all countries should be fighting crime, and especially of the big sort, of the organized type, which is transboundary. Now, when finance comes in, when we're talking about financial sector, you have either direct crime in the sense of fraud, robberies, and the lot, or using financial instruments and financial institutions as a conduit to hide the proceeds of crime. And that's money laundering. That's what it's all about. And we have to fight both. And since the 80s, it started, this fight. Now it's got bigger and bigger and bigger because we're seeing that it's really big. And so we're no exception. If we want to have a financial services sector and brag about it and so on, we have to take this seriously. And you take it seriously by doing a risk assessment. I mean, the people who are joining this discussion, we can amplify on it. But first, you have to know where your risks are so that your limited resources would be able to go into that direction. So we've heard stories, even the best banks in the world got tainted, if you can call it that, or got involved. It's very hard for any country to say, no, it's not a problem in my country. You can't, because you're a receptacle, you're a conduit of finance. And it's not so easy. It's conspicuous. One is black and the other one is white. You wouldn't know unless you know the source, the ultimate beneficiary. And now we have made a lot of improvements with the directives, the EU directives, and also coming from FATF, from the international agency. We've gone quite a long way. And you need expertise. And that's where I'm coming with about the United States. Not just the United States, from the UK. I've had several delegations from the UK, from the Ministry for Security and the Home Office, And the Home Office, I've gone myself. We've learned a lot. We're adapting. We're building and see what institutional changes we need. With the US, we've got the FBI here to give us training. We have the IRS, where they are also gave a training to our tax authorities, who before the tax crime was solved, quote unquote, by giving slapping administrative fines. Not anymore. Now we have cases where would be brought to court, named and shamed, and the court will take over from there. So yes, cooperation with the US and the UK is ongoing.
But what is the US asking for? Is there something that the US wants from Malta in return for this assistance?
Our cooperation, which we have full cooperation with both the EU and with the US and also third countries. So, we want information, they want information. This has gone even to in the past. I remember in 1997, I was at the MFSA. I remember the FBI asking certain questions on certain companies, and we were used to give that information. So there's nothing new in that. Any country which is looking after criminals, seeking criminals, would ask countries to cooperate, especially when accounts are opened in other countries.
So thank you. We're going to be asking Anthony Eddington from the MFSA. I'll introduce him a bit as well. But just before we move on to him, I'd like to know your level of confidence in terms of Malta managing to avoid grey listing by summer. So as things stand, COVID has not dampened our efforts or slowed them down, according to you, correct?
I'm not giving out any secrets. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, I have a similar conference with the estate agents in Malta, because they are one of the last bastions who have to be roped in and cooperating in the money laundering. The fourth AML directive has asked that we won't have any infringement if finally, because we agreed, we did what was required of us, but they said very clearly, and the estate agents and the lawyers, the legal profession. So this is ongoing. There's no level of COVID. Sorry, I didn't get that.
Your level. So we're going to manage to
we're doing our best. We have a newsletter now. I will send you the second one, that we are showing the world what we're doing, and the level. And again, the MFSA and others, the FIAU will be able to tell you the amount of action being taken is far. There's a significant jump in what we have done. Finally, we have we're holding. I don't know how to describe it, but we were not scoring. This is the right word. We were playing and having good players and good rules. and so on. But we're not scoring. When the world says, yes, but what have you to show for it? There's nothing. Nothing being impounded, no cases in court, and so on. And we believe that by the time that because this takes time, unfortunately, and especially this circumstance hasn't helped. But still, we want to arrive where a country like Malta would, in a normal way, admit that it has crime in its midst and it's taking action. That's what the world is about. It's not, you cannot say you can't have crime. No, I mean, because you're a conduit of finances, which is a mixed bag. So yes, I'm confident that the way we're doing, we've still got some challenges. I'm not saying, oh yes, it's over, it's fine. No, there's always, pushing, especially on the question of the police and financial crime unit and the unit we want to set up. I think that's where we want to arrive.
Okay, I'd like to bring in Anthony Eddington, who is the head of compliance, head of financial crime compliance with the MFSA. Is a new recruit who's been there since March, and he's joining us from the UK. There's a bit of a delay in his connection, but I think we'll get through it. Anthony, maybe you can tell us a bit about your experience, where you're coming from. I believe you did some work with the Scotland Yard as well before, so give us a sense of who you are. And you've been brought in as in response, perhaps as well, to Manival's concerns that Malta's MFSA is under-resourced and doesn't have enough of the right specialty expertise, right? So from your perspective, how are we doing, and how's work been?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Professor Scicluna, Christian Alfred when he comes online, and good morning, Malta. I'm very fortunate to be a part of the Maltese financial crime team within the MFSA. My background is as an accountant primarily, and then I moved into policing, and I was a Scotland Yard detective. I had 3 tours there in various units, including the Proceeds of Corruption unit. And then from there, I've worked in King, and I've worked in the Caribbean, in the Cayman Islands, and also in the Middle East, where I was a head of money. I've extensive experience in fintech, so I know the space where Malta wants to move into. I task myself as a enabler rather than a blocker to business. I work with businesses and the authorities to ensure there's transparency and legal adherence to any products or services that want to be delivered on the islands. So that's my background.
And how are you dealing with? First of all, are you confident that Malta is going to manage to achieve, not be grey listed or blacklisted? Do you think the MFSA is doing enough work over there? And what are the difficulties to get that done?
Yeah, it's been the COVID issue hasn't helped us along the way, but we were already way ahead on the path on our journey to deliver the tasks set for us by the Manival team. We've introduced operational procedures and standards, and we continue to work effortlessly to achieve our predefined goals. We've successfully implemented our business continuity model as well, which allows the staff to work remotely, minimizing risk to themselves and their families. Because we've also invested heavily in the IT equipment, this is paying dividends now because it's business as usual for us. We're still being able to conduct our site visits, our telephone interviews, our video interviews using our IT. Our IT department is fantastic. Everyone's on board and everyone's engaged with what we have to do. Going back to Manival and our commitments on that, among the many facets of enhancements being undertaken in our sector is our sectorial risk indicators model. We're enhancing that so we get a greater feel for the risks that businesses or sectors may pose to the country. Once we know the risks, we can take action to control the risk. Risk isn't bad, it's just knowing what the risk is. And once you do that, and using the correct tools to that.
Okay.
Also, we use our collaboration with other agencies.
Okay, sorry, because of
such as the FIAU.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to bring on the FIAU as well to get a sense of because as we know, the FIAU is responsible for maybe a more specialized element of your work as well as MFSA. Alfred, maybe you can give us a sense a bit of how the inspections and the work that you're doing, how that has changed due to COVID, right? And has it actually slowed you down?
Yes. Hi, good morning, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity as well. And also good morning, Mr. Scicluna and Anthony. Yes, so I mean, it's important to start off with very briefly just to mention that the FIAU has two roles. I mean, the FIAU is an intelligence agency, and we are also a supervisor. And I like to say that everything we do has to do with anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing. But they are two very distinct, very different roles. So when it comes to supervision, we haven't slowed down, and on all fronts we haven't really slowed down. I mean, obviously I can't say that we have not been impacted at all by COVID-19. And I will also go to say that a face-to-face meeting can never be completely replaced with a video call. But work has not slowed down. So even when I see the supervisory work that the FIAU is doing, for example, when it comes to carrying out examinations on-site inspections, right now we're not really doing on-site, physically on-site, but we're still carrying out several examinations, mostly obviously through remote means. So, for example, I mean, just at the moment we have around 30 compliance examinations that are taking place, and in May we plan to start around another 20. So obviously we are working differently than we would normally do with carrying out face-to-face meetings and going on site. But it is quite interesting to see how we're all finding innovative ways to work together and to proceed with our work and carry out examinations and hold interviews with officers from banks and look at the systems and obtain documentation through secure means, for example. So really the numbers are very clear that we're proceeding with our work.
When Manival report was originally published, or a draft was published, the FIAU had said, most of these recommendations are things we're doing anyway. We've already implemented about 90% of them. So now, almost a year has passed, or is on its way. Have we finished the other 10%? Are we on track? And is there a fear that we are sort of too optimistic about achieving these milestones? Or and maybe a mismatch between our expectations and the expectations of Manival?
Yeah, sorry. So I think we should remember that the Manival report came out in summer of 2019. But obviously the FIAU played a very active role in the evaluation, and the evaluation started way before summer of 2019. So we were very well aware of the recommendations that were going to be formally issued in summer of 2019. And apart from that, the FIAU had also worked very closely with the European Banking Authority and also the European Commission in 2018. So a long time before the actual Manival report came out and was made publicly available, we had already started to work on all the recommendations, and the recommendations made by Manival were very similar to the recommendations made by the European Banking Authority and the European Commission. So fortunately, by the time the Manival report came out, the FIAU had already actually revised its policies and procedures to ensure that the recommendations were met. And I can comfortably say that most of the Manival recommendations that concern the FIAU have been implemented in practice, and we revise our policies and procedures. I would say that now, after that exercise was carried out, the FIAU is mainly focusing on get on implementing the work in practice. So on getting the numbers there, on carrying out on-site examinations in accordance with our new policies and procedures, obviously taking action where there is need to take action, such as, issuing penalties or issuing remediation directives and asking entities to enter into an action plan with the FIU. So as an FIU, I can comfortably say that the recommendations made to the FIU have been met, and that we're on target and we're not slowing down, and a lot of other work is still taking place. For example, Malta is currently in the process of transposing the 5th directive. Most of it has been done. But certain aspects of the 5th money laundering directive have to be transposed by September, such as the creation of a bank account registry, and the work is ongoing in that regard. So we're liaising with our IT suppliers.
I want to get the minister's impression as well here, as in one of the points that is being mentioned is that structurally and in terms of process and things like that, we're managing to implement these recommendations, but there is still now it's about getting the numbers and proving that our work is actually being effective. One of the aspects to actually delivering on many of these investigations to the final steps is the police force. Minister, how difficult is it to reform the police force, and when it comes to something like the economic crimes unit, we've heard a lot of criticism about that unit. Is it a question of having to start from scratch? Is it is it fixable?
No, I still remember addressing this issue a few months, I would say 2 months after I became a minister, way back in March of 2013, before anything happened in Malta. And it was the crisis in Cyprus which triggered some of the experts who were advising us at the time to tell us to address these issues. I'm very pleased, I must say. First of all, the Manival, or whatever assessment is done, is a very complex affair. They break it down into various tasks, into minute detail. They know the situation well. First of all, we had provided them with the national risk assessment. That was the foundation whereby we did a lot of work for them, and it's in our interest to do that. But therefore, they could use that in order then to probe deeper. And as external and independent assessors, they'll tell you, this is not strong enough, and this is, it's wanting, and this and that. So it's a very rich report, I must say. And that's why Manival is highly respected. And doesn't mean that you agree with all of that, but the point is, we have accepted all the recommendations because it's a way of moving forward. It's no use in quibble with that. This is the time for us to change, for us to deliver and show the world. So I'm quite pleased with a lot of these links in the chain. The MFSA, the FIAU, and so on. As a government, we have to see the end result. It's a question of the connections, how strong they are. Do they make that chain where you can tie an anchor and be secure at night when the wind is blowing? That is what finally counts. No, I must admit that we are not happy enough with all the reforms and improvements in the economic crime unit. So we have already decided as a government, because whatever resources they have and whatever effort they're going to put into, they don't have the right level of resources, and they can't. The structure, the wage structure, you name it, it's not, hasn't yet managed to attract the type of professionals one would require in a proper economic crimes unit. So we thought of removing the monopoly, so to speak, of the police. It's already been removed by the fact that now we have the Attorney General's office, whereas prosecution is concerned. So they can trigger a prosecution without waiting for the police commissioner. That's already a big improvement. But we saw, if you go to Italy, if you go to the UK, as the Home Office explained to us, there could be many institutions. There's no such thing as a monopoly of one policing unit to prosecute. There could be others. So we are building an extension, if you want to call it, of the FIAU in such a way where it will have another function, not just of the intelligence function, but also the prosecutorial one.
Okay.
And it will be so that the reports which come from the banks, you know, during the supervision and trigger a suspect, they will pass it on to the FIAU. The FIAU then will pass the ball within the institution where they can actually score and get the prosecution, especially when we're talking of organized crime. The FIAU has got very fine people, lots of expertise. Now we need another unit, a separate unit, where they will have the same standards, which understand this type of organized financial crime, which will be able to deliver to the courts and manage to score and manage to get to the criminals in a very effective manner.
Okay, I'm gonna need to stop you there because we've got not much time left, and I want to just get another comment from each person before we round up. Alfred, maybe I can conclude with you. What the Moneyval report and these sort of pressures from outside of Malta, how useful are they to getting the FIAU the sort of resources and autonomy and pressure it needs to actually deliver even more on its work? In the sense, today, are you seeing more resources being given to the FIAU than there were maybe a year or 2 years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, well, 2 years ago, we were already beefing up quite significantly, and we were getting already a significant amount of resources compared to several years before that. But I mean, I joined the FIAU way back in 2010. So quite a long time ago, and I mean, there's no resemblance whatsoever between the FIAU how it is today and how it was back then. I think the overall system, I mean, Moneyval and the FATF are very powerful. This is not international law; these are international standards. So there's no actually an obligation by countries to follow them, but it would be sort of suicidal for a country not to follow those international standards, and countries do so very rigorously. So the system really works well. So the whole system of mutual evaluations, this is important to remember, that this is not an evaluation just by Moneyval or FATF, but this is countries evaluating countries in reality, and it works well because it highlights a number of weaknesses, a number of gaps. Sometimes countries would know of their weaknesses and sometimes not. So it is also a learning process for everyone, and it definitely helps countries understand where the weaknesses are and what must be done to improve. And it also puts a lot of pressure on countries, including Malta, obviously, to ensure that they have the adequate resources in place to be able to combat this crime. So I mean, I even see the benefits of it when we have difficulties with other countries, maybe that are not cooperating with us or that are not cooperating in general. So they're put under a tremendous amount of pressure to, for example, start sharing information and provide information in a timely manner. So overall, yes, I mean, from my experience over all these years at the FIAU, I have seen countries change and improving.
Thank you very much.
Financial crime.
I want to bring in Anthony again, and I want to kind of ask you, Anthony, whether there is also a cultural problem that needs to be fought here with a small island, a lot of people knowing each other. Enforcement tends to be weak across the board. Obviously, you're coming in from a non-Maltese perspective. Maybe that's something to be said around that as well. How culturally, how much of a cultural battle is this to fight at all levels, be it the police, be it the judiciary, be it the FIAU and the MFSA?
Well, I think that's a very good question. Culturally, everyone wants to do the right thing. No one wants any bad actors to spoil what Malta has already got and build upon its foundations. Malta wants to move forward, and in doing so, we want to encourage the right business to come in into Malta at all times. The MFSA has increased its recruitment program over the time. We're continuing to recruit good quality staff throughout the COVID crisis. It's had no impact on us at all on recruitment. We've opened up an academy for our staff. We're getting the foundations right to push that out in our site visits. And as Alfred said earlier, we're collaborating with each other and the police. My team have committed to deliver 60 site visits this year, and we will achieve that. We're well on track to deliver. We have constant communication between each department. We have daily meetings. I can pick up the phone to anyone in Alfred's team, and likewise they can with us. The culture is right. It's being built upon, and I must say my team has increased since I've joined, and from last year as well. It's increased exponentially with the demands that Moneyval has placed upon Malta. My team is the most focused and eager and enthusiastic team I've ever worked with, and with that we're able to deliver what we need to for Moneyval and overcome this challenge that we have.
Fantastic. Minister, so we've heard from the FIAU, we've heard from the MFSA. It seems that Moneyval has given them the resources and a lot of the tools that they need. We mentioned the problems in the police force, and I think it's also worth mentioning some issues at the judiciary level, right? At the judicial level, I think there is also expertise lacking on that front. So I want to get your perspective of that, but then also to conclude, I wonder what you think Malta's economic future and financial future should look like in a post-COVID and post-Moneyval world. You know, should we be investing in different areas? Should we be those sort of things? But first, about the judiciary as well, whether there's something to be said in terms of the expertise there.
Yes, we need reforms there as well. I mean, you need specialized judges, and also the system has really to improve. Let's put it this way. But that's not just for financial crime, but in particular for financial crime as well. However, just this week, this Monday, I put it on the table of the House the report for SATA Bank. Now, nobody is proud of problem and the scandals and so on, or bad apples. But what we did about SATA Bank is a good example of what one is expected in the future from Malta, how to deal with a very problematic bank, and what the FIAU did, what the MFSA did, what the government did, and what's coming out. So it's very transparent. It's all there in the report. But now I think that we have started. It will continue. I mean, this is important. I mean, the number of STRs, the number of fines, and whatnot. I mean, all part of the arsenal. So regarding iGaming or financial crime, no, it's a question of knowing the risks and managing them. So I mean, we are an island without any resources, as you know, natural resources. So we have to not be so, how would I put it? We have to be diversified. We cannot say, put up our nose, no financial service, no iGaming, no this and no that. We need to know that all sectors have an element of risks. Some have higher risk than others, but we need to show that our expertise are such that we can manage them, cope with them, and also have a good name. This is very, very important. Our reputation is key to attracting investment to the island.
Especially in a context where there could be a global economic downturn, right? The last thing we need is to be battling on that front while also being blacklisted or grey-listed by Moneyval, right?
They go hand in hand. I mean, it's still there. I mean, whatever technology and whatever way we do, crime will remain crime and reputations continue being reputations.
And will you ultimately take responsibility if Malta does not achieve this goal? As in, at the end of the day, there is a level of confidence coming out from this conversation. I think both in terms of the MFSA, the FIAU, and the government, there was a sense of confidence in the last year as well, and maybe it was misplaced. What kind of guarantee do you give the public in terms of if we fail, are you ultimately responsible?
Yeah, but you're asking a very complicated. This is a peer review. This is a peer review. There are countries who look in sympathy with you. They recognize your efforts. Others are not the same. So whoever is familiar with Manival knows that this is made up of other countries like us. We review their work. They review ours. So it's a peer review in order for you to show what you are. That's it. I mean, this is the whole exercise. I was involved in the very first one way back in 1997, 98, when Manival came for the first time in Malta. You can see that every visit we've made big improvements and strides. Malta is making a big effort, and it should be recognized as such. I have full confidence in that.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We've run out of time. Took a bit longer than we had hoped, and maybe we could have pressed a bit more. But I think it was really good to get a sense of the work that's going on and how important it is. So thanks for being with us today. I'm just going to be giving a quick conclusion. So thank you very much for watching. I have been Chris Peregin, and this has been COVID Calls. Today we had three very interesting guests. We had the Finance Minister, Scicluna, who spoke about the economic realities Malta is facing, and also how important it is for us to pass the Manival test and keep our to actually be delivering results on our fight against financial crime. We spoke to a new member of the MFSA, the head of the financial crime compliance unit, who is one of the responses to this Manival report, and he spoke about some of the efforts that MFSA is making to resource itself better. Same with the FIAU. I had the Deputy Director Alfred Zammit, who gave a very good account of FIAU's work, even in relation to COVID, and how that's been not stopped in any way, but it's changing, and there's confidence all around that we will be doing better at the end of this summer in terms of the Manival test and complaints, but no official guarantees from the minister, given that this is a peer-reviewed system, and no matter how much effort and work is put in, things might not go according to plan. Plus, there's also the reform that we need to talk about and look into in terms of the police and the judiciary. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll be with you again next week. Have a good weekend. This has been COVID Calls.